My name is Jeanette Waddell, and I'd like to share a story with you about my growing up. The story is called My Family Jewels. Not exactly what you might be thinking, but I grew up in a small town, actually Hancock County, and I grew up on a really small farm. My mom, my dad, and a brother and sister, and I have 6 older brothers and sisters. And by the time I was really old enough to get to know them, they had all gone and left home, so it's really just the 3 of us there. And it was a difficult life. You know, my mom was born in 1919, so was my dad. They both had about a 4th grade education. And the opportunities for African Americans in Hancock County were limited. Opportunities in Hancock County at that time were limited for everybody, but especially for African Americans. And so my mom and dad worked hard, and they taught us to work hard. You know, some of the things that, that I can remember, churning butter. We had a cow, Molly and Polly. We had a mule. My mom had a great big garden and grew everything we ate except maybe flour and cornmeal. There were collard greens, watermelons, cantaloupes, cabbages, tomatoes, squash, okra, all kinds of butter beans and peas. And my mom was an absolutely great cook. She could go in the kitchen and put together something that was really good. And my dad, he did a lot of hunting. He had a lot of talents. They both did. And that's how they made ends meet. My cousins tell me that my dad was really a great shot, that from a fairly good distance, he could light a match with a rifle shot. And that really came in handy when it was time to go deer hunting. He trapped rabbits. We had hogs. And so a lot of what we needed was there, right there. And those things we didn't have, then that was where creativity came in. And they could be really creative in solving a problem. So one of the things my parents taught was faith. Faith in God, but also faith in ourselves. Faith that we could solve whatever problems life threw at us, and that we could solve those problems in a way that was honorable. You know, they taught us to tell the truth, not to steal. And I can remember growing up, in my family, lie was a 4-letter word. If you said the word lie, you were going to get your mouth washed out with soap. It was much more polite to say, you're telling a story, which is, what I grew up to do, to tell stories. And the things that they taught us didn't really mean an awful lot when we were children. It was really when we grew up that those things all came into play. I graduated from high school and went off to college, got married, and adopted twin sons, newborns, and then my life changed. I became a single parent. I just opened a new business, and I have 5-year-old little boys to take care of. And yes, just like growing up, life was difficult. Money was short. And so it required a certain amount of that ingenuity that my mom and dad had taught me to solve the problems of our lives. They also taught me a certain amount of independence, that, you can learn to do things. Like I said, my dad was good at fixing cars. He was a great hunter. He also built things. The dining room, the kitchen table that we all sat at was a table that my dad built. My parents encouraged us to learn. So when I was in high school, I was one of the first girls in my high school to take auto mechanics. And my mom actually let us paint her car. you know. And I remember in the shop class, we sanded it all down, we taped it up, and then with our spray blowers, we painted that car a beautiful blue. Now, I don't know if I'd let my teenage daughter and her shop cohorts actually paint my car, but she had faith in us, and she had faith in our teacher that we'd do a good job. And when it was my brother's turn to go, he took shop, and so he made this bench that is probably over 50 years old now, and it's actually still standing. When it came time for my younger sister, she learned to wire house. She learned to do wiring in her shop class. And so when my parents built a room onto the house, my sister and her instructor did the wiring. And I know they really did a great job because the room didn't burn down. So I had all of that thinking now that I'm confronted with being a homeowner and having to solve some of the problems of owning a home. Now I lived in Atlanta, and in Atlanta, when just the thought or the mention of snow, the grocery stores would empty. All the bread, all the milk, but I didn't go buy bread and milk. What I bought was graham crackers, marshmallows, and chocolate. Well, the first time that, now my ex-husband had always been the one to build the fire in the fireplace. So now it's my chance. We know it's gonna get cold, maybe we'll get a little snow. I've got everything I need, I've got the wood, but I've never actually built a fire. Although we had a wooden stove at home, that was my dad's job to chop the wood and my mom's job to actually build the fire. So I've got everything that I need. And I also have this great book called How to Do Everything. I mean, literally, that was the title of the book, How to Do Everything. This was before YouTube. It had a bright yellow cover, and so I go through the book and find out how to build a fire, and I get everything that I need, and I light it, and it actually works. And we're able to have our s'mores. Now, we didn't get any snow, but we did enjoy s'mores, and that was such a great feeling of accomplishment that we can do this together. We can actually do this. And things went on, and we lived in a tri-level house. The garage had been turned into a family room, and then there was the main level that had the kitchen and the dining room, and then a couple of steps up were 3 bedrooms. And I always came in through the garage, well, what had been the garage. And as I'm walking in, I'm looking at the ceiling and I'm thinking, that ceiling looks like it's dropping. And this goes on for, probably a few months. Every day I walk in, I look up at the ceiling. Now I love to read and read stories to my kids all the time, so I'm thinking Chicken Little, the sky is falling. So I'm looking up and I think it's really, the ceiling is getting lower. And one Saturday, my kids are away, I walk in, I look up, and I reach my hand up, and I touch the ceiling. And it seemed like the whole weight of the world simply descended on my shoulders. And I thought, it's really true, the sky is falling. And with that thought, I'm just crushed. I'm laying on the floor, and I am just bawling my eyes out. I am just crying. The world is over. How in the world am I going to fix the ceiling? Our ceiling really is falling. And while I'm on the floor, the faith that my mom taught me kicked in, and I literally hear a voice that says, since you're on the floor, clear your eyes, wipe the tears, turn over, and look up. Well, I also learned how to be obedient. So I did. I wiped my tears, I turned over, and I looked up. And as I kept looking, I could see that the ceiling was peaking at a certain point. Okay, the next step is to actually move the ceiling tile, and I really do have an active imagination. So I imagined that every creepy crawly thing that had ever come inside was waiting for me when I moved that ceiling tile. A squirrel somehow had, a baby squirrel somehow had managed to find its way underneath our stairs. So I'm thinking, okay, there might be a squirrel up there. We had so many grasshoppers in the summertime that it would literally look like the carpet was bouncing. So surely there are grasshoppers up there. And then in the fall, we'd have these huge flying water bugs. So I'm thinking all of these things are in the ceiling. So I get a chair. I get that courage that, you know, I saw my mom and dad approach life with and solve their problems with. And I stand on that chair and take a deep breath. And I move the tile away, and the only thing there is dust. So I'm relieved. But as I'm looking around, I can see what's happened. One of the support wires is broken. And so all I really need to do is figure out how to attach something to that support wire. And you know that book that I was telling you about, that yellow book that says How to Fix Everything? It has a section in there on how to fix the ceiling, except I'm not really strong enough to use the wire the way that I'm supposed to. And here's where that ingenuity comes in. And I figure I need something that's rubbery and that's stretchy, that I can stretch it down, and then when I let it go, it'll pull it back up, and bungee cords. So I go to Ace, get a few bungee cords, figure out how to put them together, and I put them up and put the ceiling tile back in. And while it's not perfect, I can breathe a sigh of relief. The sky is back in place. The ceiling is where it belongs. And I can thank my mom and dad for all those lessons that I didn't think I was really paying attention to, but somehow, over and over and over again, as I saw them confront life and solve their problems, you know, as I saw them exercise their faith and rely on their neighbors, and the faith that they had in themselves and the faith they had in us. Those are my family jewels. And I hope that I have passed those on to my twin sons. And beyond that, I hope now I can pass those on to my grandchildren. Thank you.